All right, thanks. Hope everybody had a good lunch. Thanks for coming back. We're only like 1 minute over time, so we're doing great right now. So thanks again. I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, Randall Luthi. Comes just like me from the state of Wyoming. As you'll notice in a minute, his accent's a little different from mine, but nonetheless, we're both from Wyoming. Randall has a wonderful career and background in industry, energy, and environmental issues. Has a long tenure of federal management over energy and natural resource issues. Currently, he works as the senior or the chief energy advisor for Governor Mark Gordon in Wyoming. He came back to Wyoming in 2019, I don't remember what year it is, to help the governor work through energy issues. As you know, Wyoming's an energy-rich state, but yet we lead in many factors in the carbon management space. So Randall's here to talk with us a bit about the Wyoming Governors Association initiative, which is focused on carbon management. So please welcome Randall.
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's a typical after lunch, bunch, right? So first of all, let me thank you so much for this coveted spot to be right on after lunch. I was hoping this would be the slot that I would get, but thank you. No, I'm really pleased to be here. Just a couple of preliminary things. Yes, I do know the Washington Mardi Gras. So, all right. You're right, it's a fabulous event. Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate that introduction. I believe we may have 3 or 4 other people from Wyoming. We got Matt, we got Scott, Jeremy, we got, is it Daniel? Right? Yeah, all from Wyoming, right? You're all here, got a few. All right, so now you've met approximately 10% of the state's population, okay? Which is good and bad, but most of the time we think that's good. Above all, I bring you greetings from Governor Mark Gordon. He had hoped to attend, and I'm sure by the time I'm through, you all will have hoped that he would have attended as well. But he wishes you well, sends his greetings, and he really wants you to be able to continue to increase the knowledge and understanding that carbon capture is an environmental and economic tool. So thank you for those efforts. You know, I think I may have reached the point, even with half a day, that, everything that needs to be said has been said, but not by everyone. So now I get the opportunity to add some of that amen to what a great chorus we've had so far this morning. Well, I really do feel like I'm among friends, and we're among friends that are united in a purpose that's going to make a difference in the world. Just a little bit about Wyoming, because it's important to set the stage. We're the 9th largest state in area. We're particularly known for cowboys, women cattle rustlers, and the home to 96% of Yellowstone Park, despite what Montana tries to tell you, all right? We have a lot of 4-legged critters. In fact, we have more 4-legged critters than humans. And frankly, we generally prefer it that way. Politically, we are a deep, deep red. 7 out of 10 people voted for President Trump in the last election, which may explain some of the conflicts we have with the current administration. We are home of the first national park, the first national forest, the first national monument, and we were the first state to recognize that indeed women should and have the right to vote. In energy, Matt mentioned, we are first in coal production. 8 out of the largest 10 coal mines in the United States are in Wyoming. That supports about 5,000 jobs directly, about 15,000 indirectly. Those jobs average about 83,000 a year. Wyoming sends coal to 26 states. Our coal supplies 65% of the electricity in Wyoming. We have 12 coal-fired plants. We export 83% of our electricity. When it comes to oil, we're 8th in production, we're 9th in gas, But if you count gas that comes from federal resources like land or federal minerals estate, we're number one there as well. You can see why Governor Gordon has been so insistent that he is not going to abandon fossil fuels. In wind, we rank 16th, and 25% of the electricity produced to Wyoming consumers comes from renewable resources. 48% of the surface of Wyoming is federally managed or owned. 67% of the mineral estate is federally managed or owned. Wyoming is ideal for carbon capture and use. We talked a little bit about the Trinity. We have that as well. We have the source, we have the means, we have the place to store it. We want to capitalize that on as well. Just recently, the Southwest Wyoming CO2 sequestration hub was announced. That was a $40 million project awarded by DOE. We also have one of the first direct air capture projects announced for the state of Wyoming as well. If I were in control of the world, I would figure out how to break that economic nut and conundrum that you could use a coal-fired plant with carbon capture to run a DAC plant. That would be where I would like to end up, but that's going to be complicated, but we might. Shortly after I came back to Wyoming, the governor was getting ready for his State of the State address, which is kind of a big deal. He said, you know, I'm going to announce that it's going to be our goal, Wyoming's goal, to be carbon neutral. I picked myself off the floor and I said, what a great idea, Governor, that we're just the state to do that, right? And then he said, not only that, I'm going to throw out the idea that we could be carbon negative and still be able to use fossil fuels. So that began the overall quest to really tie ourselves in with carbon capture. Because frankly, we can't do it without carbon capture. And in today's world, with the policies, the politics, the economics, the desire to move away from CO2 and carbon, there is no way fossil fuels will exist if we do not tie that in with carbon capture. So thank you for those efforts in doing that. That led to the governor's initiative for the Western Governors Association to be decarbonizing the West. Now, just a little bit about the WGA. It's 19 states, Western states, roughly that breaks along the Mississippi River and everything to the west. We have 11 Republicans right now, 8 Democrats. Before you can move an initiative forward, you have to have general consensus. I believe it's 14 states you have to have who agree or willing to do that. You know, earlier we saw a map of CCS projects, and where did you notice a big gap? It's in the western United States. There were 2 along the coast of California, but then there's a big gap there in the middle. This couldn't be a better time to focus on decarbonizing of the West. The governor has basically set up this initiative to sit into 3, maybe 4 buckets, just for a lack of a better explanation. The first bucket is carbon capture on a fossil-fueled electric generation plant. That is his #1 priority. With 12 coal-fired plants in Wyoming, that might make some sense. Coupled with that is let's work on the science, the politics, and the statutory framework for that actual sequestration. Again, that ties in well with what Wyoming is working on. We have the integrated test center that it actually is connected to a coal-fired plant, which allows companies to test their technologies on flue gas. And then right next to it, the School of Energy Resources is working on a carbon safe project, which is a carbon sequestration project. Wyoming is one of 2 states with Class 6 primacy. Louisiana, I understand you're close, but right now you're not in. But you will be soon, I understand. We welcome you to the fold. That next bucket that we're going to talk about, it will be the natural use of carbon capture. That is going to be dealing with, of course, trees, plants, forests. What is the natural way to do carbon capture? That will be the topic of the next general workshop, and there's many issues there, as you can imagine, to discuss. It's going to be, how do you enhance vegetation? What is the science related with how you do increase the ability of plants to store CO2? What are accurate methods to validate what you store and the value of that CO2 that you store? It's got to be more than just selling carbon credits. Because when you just sell carbon credits, often it's that landowner that's put that extra time and effort to increase the ability to store carbon in his or her plants. They don't often get that monetary reward from those carbon credits. So WGA is going to be looking at something like that as well. The other bucket is the industrial decarbonization. Another huge topic which many of you, or one or two of you, have talked about this morning, of where we're going to turn. Help us at WGA identify which industry should we target. What makes the most sense of how to target? What kind of tools can we use to work on industrial decarbonization in the West? And then at the end of that process, the WGA will put together it's generally a big old fat binder, but hopefully it's a binder that is actually going to be used. And we will identify policies, procedures, recommended best practices, and possibly statutes for states to look at as well, as they determine on how do we move forward with decarbonizing of the West. You know, it's a great opportunity. I feel fortunate that I'm able to work on it. Because certainly, you know, you don't want to have something that you can solve easily, correct? Or none of you would be here today if you thought this was a problem that we could wrap up in a day or two. But it is going to be worth it. You know, Wyoming has its own challenges. We have certainly a segment that are very leery of carbon capture, concerned that we're taking away the food that plants clearly need. Education is an overall part of that process. You all have reached out and have begun and have been working on this educational piece far longer than I have. So with that, I thank you. Governor Gordon thanks you. And should there be any questions, I'm happy to take a few as well. But thank you for your efforts and time. No comments, no questions. Perfect. Thank you.